And another thing, well, I mean, the other thing is, of course, that that I was just down here sort of grabbing a bit here and a bit there, and weaving these into purposes of my own that were invisible to these folks. I mean, for example, I mean, the little exchange with Simone Forti, that was that would have been a precursor to concept art, I suppose. I mean, I quickly arrived at the position that, you know, if you want to do head games, there's no reason for them to be, you know, in a concert of music. So, I mean, I very quickly pulled all of that out and made a separate genre out of it. But I mean, the thing that bothers me the most about this today is, and I suppose that it was Lamont who, you know, Cage had sort of staked out a position, I guess you could call it formalist absurdism. I mean, as if Beckett were purely formalist, or something like that. And I mean, I suppose that Cage's point is that when the Dadaists did it, that it was misbehavior, and that when he did it, it was no longer misbehavior, it was a new aesthetic. It had supposedly it had no element of misbehavior. It was just absurdism, just formalism. Then Lamont comes along with his mystique of the new. I mean, that the only thing that matters is whether it is new. And I mean, I suppose that was this sort of viciously competitive situation into which I stepped, you know, on that February evening in 1961. And today, I mean, you know, well, it is all very strange. I mean, because I mean, for example, as you know, I mean, there is you know, a great tribute that is being paid to Dada right now. And so, I mean, here we have a civilization, the last of the civilizations, and you climb its cultural ladder, and what you find at the top is Dada. The icon of, you know, prestige culture or something like that, and Cage and so forth and so on, and Lamont, if we dare speak of him while he's still alive. You know, I'm appalled today to think that you know, that there was this ordeal of the avant-garde, and sort of the way that I got my start was to sort of enter a competition, sort of who can be the most preposterous, the most senseless, the most incomprehensible, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, evidently I sort of, you know, picked the right point. I mean, Lamont sort of congratulated me for not getting off into any sensationalism like Paik. Because, I mean, Paik's sensationalism is sort of like, you know, it deviates from absurdist formalism. It's not formalist. So, but at any rate, you know, I mean, next day I came back here in the afternoon, did a more conventional concert in the sense that there were scores and pieces, and that Simone Forti was sort of brought in as a performer, and that was not as interesting to Lamont. I mean, but you know, if I somehow if I had sort of followed that up appropriately, I would probably be more in the establishment's good graces than I am. But I already had a problem with it, and the problem just got worse and worse, or more and more acute is what I ought to say. I would come back here to see the Bob Morris, The Diminishing Corridor, when I came down to New York to give my lecture, and that was June of 1961. Lamont brought me over here. By that point, I was directly attacking the whole notion of newness as a criterion of value for avant-garde work. It's complete nonsense, of course. Let me see, I did not exit the avant-garde that easily. I mean, even though Cage was sort of prepared to be finished with me, because of these gestures toward jazz. There was an avant-garde concert at Harvard, March 31, 1961, and in other respects, I was somewhat slower in quitting, and it also took me a while to find my métier, and I guess that as far as music is concerned, I was told probably in 1970, well, in the late 1970s, that my slogan ought to be New American Ethnic Music, and I like that, so I use that slogan. But I suppose it took me a while to sort of develop, from this to that.